He chose Valentine's Day to say it. Not during a fight. Not in private. Not even gently. He said it across a candlelit table at a crowded rooftop restaurant in downtown Chicago, with red roses between us and a violinist playing 2 tables away. He looked at me calmly and said I was not wife material. At first, I thought he was joking. The kind of careless comment men make when they want to sound brutally honest, but still charming. I waited for the smile. It never came. He explained it like a performance review. Said I was ambitious, but not nurturing enough. Independent, but not soft enough. Driven, but not supportive enough of his vision. He said marriage required a certain energy. A woman who prioritizes her man. He said I challenged him too much. The words did not sting immediately. They settled slowly, like cold air creeping under a locked door. Around us, other couples were laughing, exchanging gifts, leaning across tables. He reached for his wine as if he had just delivered practical feedback, not dismantled the future we had discussed for 3 years. 3 years. I had moved cities for him. Helped him build his real estate portfolio from 2 rental properties to 7. I reviewed contracts when his attorney was unavailable. I staged open houses when agents bailed. I believed we were building something together. Apparently, I was just assisting. He said he wanted someone more traditional. Someone who would step back so he could lead fully. Then he added something worse. He said I would thank him one day for being honest. That was the moment the humiliation hit. Not loud. Not dramatic. Just sharp clarity. He had already decided my role in his story. Temporary. Useful. Replaceable. The check arrived. He paid without looking at me. Outside the restaurant, the February wind cut through my coat. He hugged me like a colleague after a networking event. No anger. No regret. Just finality. He drove away first. I stood on the sidewalk watching the city lights blur against the cold. That night, I did not cry. I opened my laptop. Because while he was evaluating whether I qualified as wife material, I had been studying something else. Ownership structures. Equity leverage. Asset vulnerability. And the house he loved more than anything was not as untouchable as he believed. He thought he ended our future on Valentine's Day. He had no idea he had just started mine. The house was his pride. A 4-bedroom modern build in a gated community outside the city. Floor-to-ceiling windows. Imported marble countertops. Smart home automation wired into every wall. He called it his legacy property. The place where he would raise a family one day. Just not with me. What most people did not know was how that house was financed. When he bought it, his credit profile was strong but stretched. Too many leveraged properties at once. The bank hesitated. Interest rates were climbing. He needed a cosigner to secure better terms. He asked me. He framed it as temporary support. Just paperwork. Just a strategic move to save on interest. My name went on the loan. Not on the deed. He said we would update ownership after marriage. Marriage that apparently required softer energy. After Valentine's night, I pulled every document from my files. Loan agreement. Payment schedules. Equity projections. Default clauses. My name was not decorative. It carried liability. That meant leverage. Over the next few weeks, I watched quietly. He began posting more on social media. Subtle photos of a new woman. Soft smiles. Brunch pictures. The narrative was forming fast. He moved on publicly before the roses from Valentine's Day had wilted. Friends reached out carefully. Some hinted that he said I was too intense. Too focused on business. Not family-oriented. Interesting. Meanwhile, property taxes for the house increased unexpectedly due to reassessment. Adjustable rate terms began shifting upward. His expansion into short-term luxury rentals hit seasonal slowdown. Cash flow tightened. He masked it well. Dinners out. Weekend trips. Designer watches. But I knew the numbers behind the lifestyle. Because I helped build them. Then I did something he would never anticipate. I stopped reminding him about due dates. For 3 years, I managed his financial calendar. Property taxes. Mortgage transfers. Insurance renewals. He relied on my systems more than he realized. Without those quiet reminders, small delays began. Nothing catastrophic. Just enough to create late fees. Just enough to trigger warning notices. He called once, irritated, asking if I had seen the lender email. I told him calmly that since I was not wife material, I assumed he preferred handling things independently. Silence followed. That was the first crack. Then I scheduled a private consultation with the lender. Not to complain. To understand options available to a cosigner under rising risk exposure. The representative explained something fascinating. If the primary borrower's financial stability declined significantly, the cosigner could request refinancing review or liability reassessment. In some cases, forced restructuring. Restructuring could mean ownership adjustments. I hung up feeling something steady and dangerous. He believed he removed me from his future. He forgot he tied me legally to his most valuable asset. And assets, when pressured correctly, shift control. Valentine's Day was the insult. The house would be the lesson. Spring exposed what winter hid. By April, the adjustable rate mortgage recalculated. His monthly payment jumped higher than projected. Not catastrophic, but enough to strain liquidity across his portfolio. 2 of his short-term rental properties sat vacant longer than expected. Travel slowed. Bookings dipped. Cash flow is quiet until it is not. He masked the tension publicly. New photos. New woman. Smiling captions about growth and new beginnings. But behind that curated confidence, I saw movement in the records. 1 late payment turned into 2. Nothing severe enough to default. Just enough to trigger lender monitoring. As cosigner, I received every notification. I did not react emotionally. I documented. Then I made my move. I formally requested a risk reassessment review based on increased liability exposure. My income had grown significantly over the past year. Promotions. Consulting contracts. Investment returns. On paper, I was now the stronger financial profile attached to that mortgage. The lender scheduled a review call. During that call, I expressed concern about escalating payment adjustments and potential long-term instability. I asked what options existed to protect my credit position if the primary borrower showed patterns of strain. The answer was direct. Refinancing under my sole qualification. It required his consent. But if he could not meet updated underwriting thresholds, restructuring discussions would follow. In simple terms, the bank would evaluate who is actually capable of sustaining the property. And for the first time, that answer was me. A week later, he showed up at my office unannounced. Not angry. Worried. He said the lender contacted him about restructuring inquiries. He asked why I was escalating things. He reminded me that the house was his investment, his future family home. Future family. The phrase did not hit the way he expected. I explained calmly that my name remained attached to financial risk. Risk required protection. Protection required review. He insisted he could manage it. Said cash flow would stabilize by summer. Promised upcoming deals would offset the strain. Promises do not satisfy banks. Numbers do. I watched something shift in his posture. For the first time since Valentine's night, confidence cracked. Then he offered something unexpected. He suggested buying me out of the loan entirely. Removing my name. Clean separation. It sounded logical. But buying me out meant qualifying independently under tighter lending conditions. Higher rates. Stricter ratios. His margins were already thin. I told him I would consider it if he submitted updated financials for review. He hesitated. That hesitation told me everything. Later that evening, I received another lender update. Conditional refinancing pathway approved pending income verification. Under my name. Alone. The house he paraded online. The house he imagined raising a softer woman in. Was now one underwriting review away from shifting control. He once evaluated whether I qualified as a wife. Now the bank was evaluating whether he qualified as a homeowner. And this time, I was not the one being measured. The underwriting review moved faster than he expected. Within days, the lender requested updated income verification from both of us. Tax returns. Debt-to-income ratios. Liquidity statements. It was routine procedure, but routine can become ruthless when numbers do not cooperate. Mine were clean. Promotions over the past year had doubled my base salary. My consulting contracts showed consistent deposits. I had reduced personal debt aggressively after Valentine's night, anticipating leverage might matter one day. His numbers told a different story. Variable rental income. Increased revolving credit utilization. 2 recent hard inquiries from short-term financing applications. Nothing disastrous alone, but together they signaled pressure. Pressure banks do not ignore. He called late one evening, voice tight. He said the lender flagged concerns about sustainability if market conditions shifted again. He accused me of creating instability by initiating review. Instability had existed long before my call. I reminded him calmly that co-signing is not symbolic support. It is shared liability. Shared liability requires shared transparency. He went quiet. Then he asked what I wanted. That question had weight. I told him I wanted protection. And clarity. The next week, the lender issued a preliminary assessment. If refinancing proceeded under joint structure, the interest rate would increase significantly due to risk recalculation. Monthly payments would rise again. If refinancing proceeded under my sole qualification, the rate would be lower. Terms more stable. Risk reduced. But that required deed restructuring. Ownership adjustment. He received the same notice. Social media still showed smiling weekend getaways. The new woman appeared more frequently now, standing in the kitchen I once helped design, leaning against countertops I selected. She had no idea her backdrop was under review. Meanwhile, property tax reassessment results arrived. Another increase. Escrow recalculated upward. The math tightened. Then came the development neither of us anticipated. One of his larger rental properties failed inspection due to code compliance updates. Temporary closure required. Repairs expensive. Revenue paused. Cash flow dipped sharply. The lender requested updated documentation immediately. He drove to see me the next morning without texting first. No arrogance this time. No performance tone. He admitted liquidity was tighter than expected. He said refinancing under his name alone was no longer realistic under current underwriting guidelines. The words were difficult for him to say. He asked if I would pause the sole application. Pause. Valentine's night flashed briefly in my mind. The way he evaluated my softness, my suitability, my long-term value. I told him I would not pause. The bank scheduled final approval review for the following week. If approved, the mortgage would transfer under my name. He would have 2 options: sell the property, or negotiate continued residency under new terms. For the first time, the house did not feel like his fortress. It felt like an asset shifting hands. He once said I would thank him for his honesty. Now he was learning what structured honesty feels like. Cold. Measured. Irreversible. The final approval call came on a Tuesday morning. Clear. Direct. Approved pending deed transfer and signature coordination. My name would stand alone on the mortgage. Lower rate. Stabilized terms. Clean structure. All that remained was execution. He received notification the same hour. By afternoon, he asked to meet at the house. Not my apartment. Not a cafe. The house. I agreed. Walking through the front door felt different this time. The scent was unfamiliar. Furniture slightly rearranged. Framed photos replaced. Evidence of a new narrative attempting to overwrite the old one. He stood in the kitchen, tension visible in his posture. He asked if I understood what refinancing meant. That removing him from the loan while keeping structural liability clean would require either a buyout agreement or a property sale. He spoke like he was still controlling the options. I let him finish. Then I explained the clause the lender had clarified. If he could not qualify independently and I secured sole refinancing approval, the lender's priority would be risk containment. That meant stabilizing ownership under the strongest financial profile attached to the loan. Mine. He realized something slowly. The cosigner he once viewed as temporary leverage had become the anchor the bank trusted. He said selling was not ideal. Market timing was wrong. He had equity, but liquidity would tighten further after repair expenses. He asked if I would consider a private arrangement. The word arrangement hung between us. I asked what he proposed. He suggested remaining in the house while paying market rent under a formal lease agreement until he could rebuild qualifying strength. A temporary structure. Professional. Clean. He did not say it directly, but the meaning was clear. He would rent the house from me. Valentine's night replayed in sharp contrast. Not wife material. Not soft enough. Not supportive enough. Now he was negotiating tenancy terms. I told him any arrangement would require written contract, security deposit, and automated rent transfers tied to strict timelines. No flexibility. No emotional appeals. His pride struggled visibly. He asked if this was necessary. I answered honestly. Structure protects everyone. The following week, paperwork finalized. Deed adjusted. Mortgage transferred. The house was legally mine. Not symbolic ownership. Not shared liability. Mine. On move-in day for the lease agreement, he signed quietly. No arguments. No dramatic gestures. Just ink acknowledging terms. As I walked through the property that evening after he left for work, the silence felt different from the night he drove away after Valentine's dinner. Back then, I stood outside in the cold. Now I held the keys. He once evaluated my worth at a dinner table. Now he sent rent to my account on the first of every month. And this was only the beginning of what ownership truly means. The first rent payment arrived exactly at 8:02 a.m. on the first of the month. Automated transfer. No message attached. Professional. I reviewed the lease agreement again that evening, not because I doubted it, but because structure fascinated me now. Late fee penalties clearly defined. Maintenance responsibilities assigned. No informal favors. No emotional shortcuts. He was a tenant. Legally. The shift was quiet but absolute. At first, he behaved carefully. Lawn maintained. Utilities paid on time. No late transfers. The new woman's car still parked in the driveway some nights, though less frequently. I noticed that. Neighbors noticed too. Ownership records update publicly faster than people expect. Within weeks, property databases reflected my name. Mail addressed to homeowner shifted accordingly. Whispers travel subtly in gated communities. One afternoon, the HOA president requested confirmation of ownership documentation. I forwarded everything promptly. Clean. Verified. Transparent. That weekend, I attended a neighborhood event at the clubhouse. Casual. Wine glasses. Conversations about property values and market trends. He arrived later with her. The moment he realized I was speaking with the HOA board about long-term improvement plans, something flickered across his face. Confusion first. Then understanding. I was not just collecting rent. I was integrating. A board member congratulated me on securing the property during volatile market conditions. Mentioned how rare it was to refinance under favorable terms this year. He heard every word. Later that night, he requested a conversation. He said the dynamic felt unnecessary. That attending community functions as landlord while he lived there created perception issues. Perception. Interesting word. I reminded him calmly that ownership includes visibility. Transparency prevents confusion. He asked if I intended to keep the property long-term. I told him yes, as an appreciating asset, and possibly as a future primary residence. The silence that followed was heavier than before. For the first time, uncertainty shifted fully onto him. He no longer controlled the timeline. Lease terms were fixed. Renewal dependent on performance. Market conditions unpredictable. A month later, another development tightened pressure. The real estate market began climbing unexpectedly. Demand in the neighborhood increased. Comparable homes listed higher than projected. Equity grew. Under my name. He saw the listings too. One evening, he asked directly whether I would consider selling if the right offer came. I told him I evaluate assets strategically, not emotionally. He nodded slowly. The balance of power had reversed completely. But something else was changing too. His tone carried less arrogance now. More reflection. He once believed removing me strengthened him. Now every payment he sent reinforced the reality. He was building my equity. And for the first time, he understood what long-term positioning actually looks like. By late summer, the market surged. 3 homes on the same street sold within weeks, each closing above asking price. Appraisals reset the neighborhood benchmark higher than anyone predicted, including him. One evening, he knocked on the door of the home office I had set up inside what used to be a study. His posture was controlled, but urgency lived beneath it. He said the appreciation was significant, that selling now could generate strong profit. He spoke like an investor again, calculating spreads and timing cycles. I let him finish. Then I reminded him of one detail. He was not the investor on record. I was. He shifted tone, suggesting partnership on a resale strategy. Marketing angles. Renovation upgrades to increase listing value. He even offered to manage contractor coordination. Months ago, he said I lacked the qualities necessary to build a future with him. Now he was pitching collaboration inside an asset I owned. I told him I had already scheduled a private appraisal update. Not because I intended to sell immediately, but because understanding leverage requires current numbers. The appraisal came back higher than projected. Equity had grown sharply. He saw the report on the kitchen counter and went quiet. Then something unexpected happened. His rental property that failed inspection earlier in the year still had not recovered full occupancy. Repairs exceeded budget. Cash reserves thinned further. Credit lines tightened. Pressure accumulated. Late one month, the rent transfer arrived 12 hours past the deadline. Not dramatic. But the lease was clear. At 8:15 a.m., I sent the late fee invoice automatically. No commentary. No emotion. He called immediately, saying the delay was minor. A banking processing issue. I replied that structure does not adjust for minor explanations. Silence followed. That afternoon, the transfer plus late fee cleared. The next week, he asked whether I would consider an early lease termination option if he found alternative housing. He framed it as practical. A reset for both of us. I asked whether liquidity was becoming uncomfortable. He did not answer directly. Instead, he admitted something he had never acknowledged. He underestimated me. Not emotionally. Financially. Strategically. He said Valentine's night was about control. He believed defining my value would secure his position. Instead, it revealed his blind spot. The conversation did not end in apology. It ended in awareness. By early fall, I made my decision. I would not sell the house. I would move in. The lease would conclude at term. He would relocate. Not dramatically. Not publicly. Just legally. Ownership means choice. And for the first time since that rooftop dinner, the future felt entirely self-directed. He once decided I was not suitable for permanence. Now permanence belonged to me. And he was running out of time inside it. The lease ended on a quiet Monday. No arguments. No dramatic confrontation. Just boxes stacked neatly near the entryway and a moving truck idling in the driveway. He walked through the house slowly that morning, checking rooms the way people do when they realize a chapter is closing. The kitchen island where he once leaned confidently. The living room where he hosted business partners. The balcony where he told me I was not wife material. Now he was handing over keys. Not symbolically. Legally. The final rent transfer cleared 3 days earlier. No delays this time. No penalties. Just precision. He had learned structure the hard way. When he stepped outside with the last box, he paused. He said he never imagined the house would end up like this. That he thought leadership meant dominance. That security meant controlling the narrative first. I listened quietly. He admitted something else. The woman who replaced me had already left months ago. The instability, the financial strain, the quiet shift in power had unsettled her. She wanted certainty. He had offered projection instead. Projection does not hold foundations together. He looked at me differently now. Not evaluating. Not dismissing. Just aware. I told him something simple. On Valentine's night, you measured my softness. You never measured my strength. He nodded once. No excuses. No defense. Just understanding. By sunset, the house was empty except for me. I walked through each room slowly, not out of nostalgia, but ownership. The walls felt different when they answered to your name. The silence felt earned, not imposed. Neighbors waved as I carried in new furniture over the next week. The HOA welcomed me formally. Mail arrived addressed correctly for the first time. The property value continued rising. Equity grew quietly in the background, untouched by ego. Months later, I received a message from him. Brief. Respectful. He said he secured a smaller place across town. He thanked me for the lesson. Not about money. About discipline. About underestimating someone who builds quietly. Valentine's Day once marked humiliation. Now it marked transformation. He thought I was not wife material. The truth was simpler. I was owner material. He tried to define my future across a candlelit table. A year later, I redefined his from the front door of the house he loved most. Power does not shout. It compounds. And sometimes the best revenge is not destruction. It is acquisition. Tell me in the comment that which part hit you the most. If you like this story, subscribe to this channel for daily revenge stories, betrayal, and toxic relationships. See you in the next one.